There are moments in life when you realize your family never truly saw you. Not because they hated you, not because they wanted to hurt you, but because somewhere along the way, they decided someone else mattered more. For me, that realization happened long before my younger brother walked into a job interview and discovered that the woman sitting across from him was the CEO. It started decades earlier. My name is Celine Drayton. I'm 32 years old. Today, I run Techishian Solutions, a technology company with more than 200 employees and clients across several countries. People who meet me now assume I've always been successful, that I've always been confident, that I've always known exactly who I was. But before I became a CEO, I was simply the daughter my family forgot. I grew up in Pittsburgh with my parents, Edmund and Isolde, and my younger brother, Alaric. He was born 3 years after me. And honestly, the moment he arrived, everything changed. Some families hide favoritism. Mine never did. Alaric became the center of the universe. The miracle child, the future success, the special boy. Every room seemed to revolve around him. Meanwhile, I slowly became invisible. If Alaric wanted something, he usually got it. New sports equipment, expensive school trips, private coaching, summer camps, video games, new clothes. My parents always found the money. When I needed something, the answer was usually, "We can't afford it." As a child, I believed them. As an adult, I realized they simply chose where the money went. I remember my 8th grade science competition. I spent months building my project. Every evening after school, every weekend, I genuinely thought my parents would come. My mother promised. My father said he'd try. The day arrived. The gym filled with parents. Families walk around taking pictures. Everyone had someone. Everyone except me. I kept looking toward the entrance. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. An hour. Nobody came. That evening my mother apologized. "Your brother had baseball practice." That was the explanation. That was always the explanation. When I played piano, they missed my recitals. When I won academic awards, they missed ceremonies. When I earned scholarships, they forgot the dates. But somehow they never missed one of Alaric's soccer games. Not one. At first I worked harder. I thought maybe if I became exceptional, they would finally notice me. Perfect grades, advanced classes, academic clubs, volunteer work, scholarships. Every achievement became another attempt to earn attention. But eventually I learned something painful. Some people decide your value long before you get the chance to prove it. By high school, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. One Christmas, Alaric received a gaming console, designer sneakers, a new bicycle, and expensive electronics. I received a sweater, not even my size. My mother smiled and said, "We know you're not materialistic." Funny how people decide you're simple after giving everything to someone else. Then came college, the conversation that changed everything. I sat with acceptance letters spread across the kitchen table. Scholarships, financial aid, plans, dreams. For the first time, I believed my hard work would matter. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. "We've been saving for Alaric." I waited, because surely there was more. There wasn't. He has real potential, as if mine didn't exist, as if my grades meant nothing, as if my acceptance letters didn't matter. My mother tried to soften the situation. "Celine, you've always been independent." People say that like it's praise. Sometimes it's simply permission to stop helping. So I worked 3 jobs, morning classes, evening shifts, weekend work, late night studying. I slept 4 hours a night, sometimes less. While classmates attended parties, I worked. While they traveled, I stayed behind. While they enjoyed college, I paid for it. I graduated with honors in computer science and business administration. Nobody in my family attended. My mother had a migraine. My father was busy. Alaric had injured his ankle. And somehow his ankle became more important than my graduation. Again. Meanwhile, my parents paid for everything for my brother. Private university, apartment, food, spending money, tuition, cars. And within a year, he dropped out. My parents called it finding himself. I called it expensive. Then came Europe. 3 years. Italy, Spain, France, Thailand, Greece. Social media became a collection of expensive restaurants, beaches, parties, and vacations. My parents paid for most of it. Meanwhile, I lived inside a tiny apartment. The heating barely worked. The sink leaked. The mattress sat directly on the floor. Sometimes dinner was instant noodles because bills came first. But there was one important difference. Everything I had belonged to me. Nobody bought it. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody rescued me. And that changed me. My first job after college paid almost nothing. Long hours. Impossible deadlines. Customer complaints. Support tickets. Endless problems. Some nights I slept in the office. Some weekends disappeared completely. And every spare moment I had, I spent building software. While Alaric traveled. While my parents financed his life. While everyone waited for him to become successful. I quietly built my future. 5 years ago, I created an AI customer management system. At first, nobody cared. Investors rejected me. Meetings failed. People said I lacked experience. Some even suggested finding a male co-founder because investors trusted men more. Every rejection became motivation. Every no pushed me harder. Eventually, one investor said yes. Then another. And suddenly, Techishian Solutions existed. The early years nearly destroyed me. Payroll terrified me. Failure felt constant. I answered customer emails, wrote code, managed finances, handled clients, solved problems, everything. Slowly, the company survived. Then it grew, then expanded. And one day, I realized I had built something worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Something nobody gave me. Something nobody believed I could create. And somehow, my family barely noticed. Whenever I talked about work, the subject changed. Whenever I shared achievements, nobody asked questions. Instead, conversations always returned to Alaric. His job, his plans, his problems, his relationships. Everything always came back to him. Eventually, he returned to America. He drifted between marketing jobs, temporary positions, short contracts. Nothing lasted. But according to my parents, he was doing wonderfully. He's finally finding himself. My mother said it constantly. Meanwhile, I employed hundreds of people. Apparently, that wasn't worth discussing. Then December arrived, 3 weeks before Christmas. And my mother called. Not a text, not an email, a phone call. "Celine, dear." Her voice sounded unusually cheerful. "We're having Christmas Eve at the house." For a moment, I felt something dangerous. Hope. Maybe enough time had passed. Maybe things were changing. Maybe they finally wanted me there. I'd love to come. She sounded excited. Too excited. Then she started talking about Alaric's new girlfriend. Marigold Vance. Harvard graduate. Consulting executive. Wealthy family. Powerful connections. Summer house in the Hamptons. My mother spent 20 minutes talking about her. Her family. Her education. Her future. And slowly I realized something. The invitation wasn't about me. It was about impressing Marigold. Once again, I was simply another supporting character in my brother's story. Still, I agreed. Because no matter how successful you become, part of you still wants your family to choose you. Part of you still hopes. Part of you still believes. But 1 week later, my father called. And this time, he told me not to come to Christmas at all. According to him, Alaric wanted everything to be perfect. And somehow, I was the problem. For a few seconds, I honestly thought I had misunderstood him. What? My father sighed. The kind of sigh he used whenever he wanted to sound reasonable. Your brother thinks it might be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. Marigold's family is attending. I sat there holding the phone, completely confused. What does that have to do with me? Silence. Then, you know how successful you've become. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it made absolutely no sense. So, I'm not invited because I have a company? That's not what I'm saying. It sounds exactly like what you're saying. Another long pause. Finally, he spoke. Alaric feels like people compare him to you. There it was. The truth. For 30 years, my brother had been the center of the family. The golden child. The future success. The one everyone invested in. And somehow, I had become the embarrassing one. Not because I failed. Because I succeeded. My father kept talking. We just want Christmas to be peaceful. Peaceful. Interesting word. Because apparently peace meant pretending I didn't exist. Again. So your solution is not inviting your daughter? Celine. No. I stood up from my desk. Suddenly all those years came rushing back. The empty seats, the missed graduations, the forgotten birthdays, the scholarships, the sacrifices, everything. And now Christmas. Even now, even after everything, they still chose him. My father sounded frustrated. You're making this difficult. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm making it difficult. We're trying to avoid tension. What tension? Silence. Because we both knew there wasn't any tension. There was only insecurity. My brother didn't want his wealthy, successful sister sitting at the same table while he introduced his impressive new girlfriend. For the first time in his life, he felt small, and somehow I was supposed to disappear to protect him. Again, I took a deep breath. When were you planning to tell me? What? The day before Christmas? No. Christmas morning? My father didn't answer. Because honestly, I think that was exactly the plan. Keep me quiet. Keep me invisible. Keep me away. He finally said, "We thought you'd understand." That sentence hurt more than the invitation itself, because understanding had become my entire role in this family. Understand why your brother needs more. Understand why your parents can't help. Understand why your accomplishments aren't important. Understand why everyone else comes first. Always understand. Never complain. Never need anything. Never take up space. I suddenly felt exhausted. Not angry. Not shocked. Just tired. Very tired. I won't come. My father sounded relieved. Thank you. Thank you. Like I had done him a favor. Like excluding me from Christmas was some kind of sacrifice on his part. Before hanging up, I asked one final question. Does Mom agree with this? Long pause. She thinks it's best. That answer hurt. Because deep down, part of me still believed my mother would choose me. Even once. Apparently not. After the call ended, I sat alone in my office. Outside the windows, Seattle glowed beneath the evening sky. Employees were finishing work. Meetings were ending. The company I had built continued moving. And suddenly I realized something strange. Hundreds of people depended on me. Hundreds. Yet my own family treated me like an inconvenience. That night I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I didn't argue. Instead, I opened my calendar. Cancel Christmas. Canceled flights. Canceled the hotel. And then I did something I had never done before. I spent Christmas with people who actually wanted me there. My employees, their families, friends, people who chose me. And honestly, it became one of the happiest Christmases of my life. Meanwhile, back in Pittsburgh, my family celebrated without me. My brother introduced Marigold. My parents smiled. Everything was supposedly perfect, at least until 6 months later. Because 6 months later, Takishian Solutions announced a major expansion. New offices, new positions, new management roles. And one afternoon, my HR director placed a resume on my desk. I looked down and froze, because the name at the top said, Alaric Drayton. My little brother had just applied to work for my company, and he had absolutely no idea who owned it. For several seconds, I simply stared at the resume. There had to be another Alaric Drayton. The name wasn't particularly common, but it wasn't impossible. Then I looked at the address. Pittsburgh, the employment history, the marketing positions, the short contracts, the same jobs my mother spent years describing as finding himself. It was him, my younger brother, the golden child, the reason I had been excluded from Christmas. And somehow, he had applied to work for my company. I leaned back in my chair. Outside my office window, Seattle looked exactly the same. Cars moved. People walked. Employees worked. But inside my office, everything suddenly felt different. Because life has a strange sense of humor. For years, my family had ignored what I built. They barely asked questions. They never visited. They never showed interest. And apparently, my own brother didn't even know who owned the company where he had just submitted his resume. My HR director, Lisa, stood near my desk. You know him? I looked up. What? The applicant. I hesitated. He's my brother. Lisa's eyes widened. Seriously? Unfortunately. She looked confused. Because everyone at the company knew me. The employees knew how hard I had worked. They knew my story. At least parts of it. But very few people knew anything about my family. I prefer it that way. Lisa sat down. You want me to remove the application? That question surprised me. Because honestly, for a few seconds, The idea sounded tempting. One click, one rejection, one automated email. Problem solved. But then I thought about all the years my family had treated me unfairly. All the opportunities, all the favoritism, all the time someone else made decisions for me. And suddenly I realized something. I didn't want revenge. I wanted fairness. For the first time in our lives. No. Lisa frowned. No. He goes through the normal process. The same as everyone else. Exactly. She smiled slightly. That's either very mature or very dangerous. Probably both. The truth was simple. If Alaric deserved the job, he could earn it. If he didn't, he wouldn't. No favors. No special treatment. No family privileges. For once, the rules would be the same. His application moved through HR. The first interview happened online. The recruiter gave him a decent score. Not exceptional. Not terrible. Average. The second interview went well enough. Again, average. His experience wasn't particularly strong. His work history showed several short positions. Multiple gaps. No major achievements. No significant projects. But he wasn't completely unqualified either. Eventually, his file reached the final stage. My stage. At Takishian Solutions, senior management positions always ended with one last interview. Mine. Most applicants never expected it. They assumed the CEO was too busy, too important. But I preferred meeting people myself. It told me everything. How they handled pressure. How they treated others. How they behaved when they thought someone important was watching. And now, my brother was about to walk into my office. Without realizing whose office it was. The interview was scheduled for Tuesday morning. 10 o'clock. 3 days away. For some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because I was nervous. Because I was curious. How much did he know? Did my parents tell him about my company? Did he know I was successful? Did he still think I worked in some small technology office? The truth was, I had no idea. We hadn't spoken since Christmas. Neither had my parents. 6 months. Not a text. Not a phone call. Nothing. Apparently, removing your daughter from Christmas wasn't considered relationship ending in my family. It was simply another decision. Another thing I was expected to understand. Monday evening, my phone rang. My mother. The first call in months. I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part wanted answers. Eventually, I answered. Celine. Her voice sounded cheerful. Too cheerful. The same tone she always used when pretending nothing had happened. How are you, dear? I almost laughed. 6 months. No contact. And suddenly, how are you? I'm fine. That's wonderful. Silence. Then she continued. Your brother has an important interview tomorrow. There it was. The reason for the call. Not me. Never me. What kind of interview? Oh, some technology company in Seattle. I said nothing. He seems really excited. Still nothing. He thinks this could finally be his big opportunity. Interesting. Apparently, he still had no idea. My mother kept talking. He says the company is growing quickly. I looked around my office. The office my family had never seen. The company they had never asked about. The success they had never acknowledged. And suddenly something became painfully clear. They truly didn't know. Not because I hid it. Because they never cared enough to ask. My mother eventually said, maybe things are finally changing for him. I almost answered. Almost told her. Almost said, the company belongs to me. But I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I wanted my family to see me without being told. I wanted them to discover the truth themselves. And tomorrow morning, they would. After hanging up, I stayed in my office long after everyone left, looking out over the city, thinking about Christmas, thinking about my father, thinking about all those empty seats at school events, the forgotten graduation, the missed opportunities, everything. Because tomorrow wasn't just a job interview. It was something much bigger. For 30 years, my brother had been the center of our family. The future, the success story, the child everyone believed in. And tomorrow, he was going to walk into a room, look across the table, and discover that the sister he excluded from Christmas was now the woman holding his future in her hands. Tuesday morning arrived, and for the first time in years, I felt nervous. Not because of the interview. I had conducted hundreds, maybe thousands, new employees, managers, executives, investors. Public speaking no longer scared me. Board meetings no longer scared me. Million-dollar decisions no longer scared me. But this was different. Because sitting outside my office at 10 o'clock would be the person who had spent his entire life being chosen over me. The person my parents built their entire future around. The golden child. My younger brother. I arrived at the office earlier than usual. The building slowly filled with employees. Coffee machines hummed. Elevators moved. Conversations echoed through the hallways. Everything looked normal. But inside me, nothing felt normal. At 9:45, Lisa knocked on my office door. "He's here." I looked up. "How is he?" She smiled. Nervous. For some reason, that surprised me. Alaric had never been nervous growing up. Not really. Because confidence is easy when the entire world protects you. When people solve your problems. When your failures become excuses. When everyone tells you you're special. Apparently, the real world had finally introduced itself. Lisa sat down. "He still doesn't know." I nodded. "He'll know soon." She looked concerned. "Are you sure you want to do this yourself?" That question had crossed my mind at least 20 times. Maybe I should have delegated. Maybe someone else should handle it. Maybe it was unfair. But then I remembered something. For years, my family had made decisions for me. They decided what mattered. Who deserved opportunities, who deserved attention. Today, I would simply do my job. Nothing more, nothing less. At exactly 10 o'clock, my assistant called. "Your 10 o'clock is here." I stood, straightened my jacket, looked out the window one final time. Then I said, "Send him in." The door opened, and Alaric walked inside. For 3 full seconds, he didn't recognize me. He was looking around the office. The city view, the desk, the furniture, probably expecting some middle-aged executive, some man in his 50s. Then his eyes landed on me, and everything stopped. His face changed instantly. Confusion, shock, disbelief. His mouth actually opened. "Celine?" I simply smiled. "Good morning." He didn't move, didn't sit, didn't speak. I pointed toward the chair. "Please." Slowly, he sat down. The silence was almost painful. He looked around the office again, then back at me. Then finally, "You work here?" I almost laughed. "Work here?" "Yes." Another pause. "What do you do?" I folded my hands on the desk. "I'm the CEO." Silence. Complete silence. I watched every emotion cross his face. Confusion, disbelief, panic, because suddenly, 30 years of assumptions collapsed. The forgotten sister, the independent daughter, the one nobody worried about, the one nobody invested in. She owned the company. He looked genuinely lost. "This is your company?" "Yes." His breathing changed. He sat back, and for the first time in his life, my brother looked small. Not because I wanted him to, because reality had finally arrived. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he laughed nervously. "This is crazy." "It is." I had no idea. I believed him. Honestly, that was the saddest part, because it meant my family truly knew nothing about my life. Nothing. No interest. No questions. No curiosity. Just assumptions. He looked around again. Mom never said anything. She never asked. That sentence hit him. Hard. Because suddenly he understood something. If our parents didn't know, it was because they never cared enough to learn. He looked down at his resume. The same resume sitting on my desk. Temporary jobs. Short contracts. Gaps. Nothing stable. And for the first time, I think he saw both of our lives side by side. Not as brother and sister. Not as the golden child and forgotten child. Just 2 adults. One who had spent years building. One who had spent years drifting. Eventually, I opened the folder. "Let's begin." He looked surprised. "Interview?" "Yes." His voice became nervous. "Seriously?" I nodded. Everyone gets the same process. And honestly, that sentence felt important. Because nobody had ever treated us equally before. Not our parents. Not our family. Nobody. For the next 40 minutes, I asked questions. Marketing, leadership, problem solving, conflict management, strategy. The same questions every candidate answered. At first, he struggled. His confidence disappeared. His answers became uncertain. But slowly, something changed. He stopped trying to impress me. Stopped pretending. Stopped acting. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was speaking to my actual brother. Not the family version. Not the golden child, just Alaric. At one point I asked, "Tell me about a failure." He laughed quietly. "How much time do we have?" For some reason, that made me smile, because it was honest. More honest than he'd ever been. The interview finally ended. He sat quietly, looking exhausted, overwhelmed, confused. Then he asked the question I knew was coming. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and answered honestly, "You never asked." The room became silent, because there was nothing else to say. No accusation, no anger, just truth. And sometimes, truth hurts more than anything. As he stood to leave, he stopped at the door, turned around, and quietly asked, "Does Dad know?" I shook my head. "No." "What about Mom?" "No." He stared at me, completely stunned, because for the first time, he understood exactly how invisible I had become. Then he said something I never expected. "I'm sorry about Christmas." And suddenly, for the first time in years, I saw regret in my brother's eyes. Real regret. The question was it already too late? After Alaric left my office, I sat alone for several minutes. The city stretched across the windows. Employees walked through the halls. Meetings continued. Phones rang. Everything inside Takishian Solutions kept moving exactly as it always did. But inside my office, everything felt different. For years, I had imagined confronting my family, telling them everything, showing them what I built, proving them wrong. And now, none of it felt the way I expected. There was no satisfaction, no victory, no revenge, just sadness, because the truth was simple. My own brother had walked into my company without realizing his sister owned it. That wasn't his failure. That was our family's failure. About 20 minutes later, Lisa knocked on my door. Well, I looked up. He actually did okay. She smiled. "You're impossible." What? Most people would have thrown his resume away. Maybe, but I'd spent my entire life being judged unfairly. I refused to become the same person. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. "Dad," for the first time in 6 months. I stared at the screen. Somehow I already knew. Alaric had called home. Eventually, I answered. "Celine." Silence. Long silence. Then, "Is it true?" I leaned back. "What part?" "Your company." "Yes." Another silence. The kind that only happens when someone's entire understanding of reality suddenly changes. "You own it." "Yes." My father sounded genuinely confused. "How?" For a second, I almost laughed. "How?" As if the answer wasn't 20 years long. As if it wasn't built from night shifts. Student loans. Tiny apartments. Missed sleep. Failed meetings. Rejected investors. Years of work. I built it. Silence again. Then, "Your brother says you're the CEO." "I am." I could actually hear him breathing. Try and process it. Because for 30 years, he had been certain of the future. Alaric would succeed. Celine would manage. That was the story. And now the story had completely changed. He finally asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" The exact same question. The exact same answer. "You never asked." That sentence hit him exactly the way it hit my brother. Because it was true. Painfully true. My father had never asked about my work. Never visited. Never showed interest. Never wanted details. Whenever I mentioned achievements, he changed the subject. Eventually, I simply stopped trying. He spoke quietly. "Your mother doesn't believe it." I smiled. "She can look up the company." Another silence. Then, "Alaric said your office overlooks the city." I looked outside my window. It does. For some reason, that detail seemed to affect him the most. Not the company, not the employees, the office. Because suddenly he could picture it. His daughter, the daughter he ignored, sitting in an office he couldn't imagine, running a company he never knew existed. Eventually he asked, "Did you hire him?" I looked down at the interview notes. Good communication, average experience, potential. Honestly, the first truly honest interview my brother had probably ever given. I haven't decided. Please don't reject him because of us. Us. Interesting word. Because for the first time, my father understood there was a new us. An entire history. Years of choices. Years of consequences. A won't. And I meant it. Because this wasn't Christmas. This wasn't our childhood. This was business. And for the first time in our lives, Alaric would either earn something himself and losing himself. No parents, no favoritism, no rescue. The next day, Alaric asked to meet. Not at the office, not professionally, personally. We met at a small coffee shop near the waterfront. He looked exhausted, honestly, older, like the interview had aged him. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "I didn't know. I stirred my coffee." "I know. No, seriously." He shook his head. I had no idea. For the first time in years, I believed him completely. Because that's the tragedy. He wasn't pretending. Our parents had spent so much time protecting him that they never noticed me. And eventually, neither did he. He looked down. Mom told everyone I was going to be successful. I smiled sadly. She told me too. He laughed. Not happily, just sadly. "And you actually became successful." That sentence hung between us. Because it wasn't about money, or offices, or companies. It was about reality. The person nobody believed would succeed. The person everyone invested in struggled. Neither of us planned that. Life simply happened. Then he looked directly at me. "I'm sorry about Christmas." There was again. This time stronger. More real. I should have said something. I didn't answer immediately. Because honestly, part of me had been waiting for years to hear things. Another part wasn't sure. He continued. I was embarrassed. He laughed quietly. He kept talking about his success. I stayed silent. And I knew she was like this. Not jealousy. For the first time in his life, he felt what I had felt. Invisible. Small. Not somehow, that realization everything, and I answered honestly. "I'm considering one thing." She smiled slightly. Apparently, as he stood alone with his stuff, and said, "You know what's funny? What? Mom still thinks he's successful." The first time, because somehow that sounded exactly like what he did. What neither of us did was that Christmas was like that. Everything we did. The following months, not over, not really, not like years, because real families don't have the same stuff. One day we started, and we got our coffee. Alaric received a junior marketing position, nothing special, no executive title, no short cuts, no tenure. The same opportunity. He called me a leader. You hired me. I smiled. No. Silence. What? You earned the job. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Because I think we finally understood. The first time in his life, he had to choose something. No parents, no connections, no favoritism, no rescue. And somehow, and then more than that, a small part, a huge part, honest salary, nothing glamorous, nothing impressive, and something that belonged to him. The first few weeks were made mistakes, asked questions, worked late. Sometimes he called me, not as his boss, as his sister. Slowly, something neither of us expected began happening. We actually got to know each other. Not the family versions, not the roles, not the golden child and the forgotten baby. Just two of us. One evening after work, he looked at me and said, "You know, Mom always made me think you did my work." That surprised me. What? He nodded. He said you were distant. I laughed softly. I wasn't distant. No. He looked down. You were hurt. That simply stated. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't hurt. I was simply hurt. Nobody noticed. Meanwhile, back in the my father showed up. Not always. Maybe once every 2 months. The conversation developed started crying. My father looked directly at me. I'm sorry. Simple words. But this time, everyone heard me. Years of silence. Years of mistakes. Years of hatred. Later that night, after everyone was gone, Valerie stood outside. You know what's funny? He said, "Look, for years, I thought Mom and Dad were dead." He laughed quietly. They didn't. I looked at him. What do you mean? They believed in the version of me. That hit me. Because he was right. The success was solid. The future stalled. He spent his entire life trying to become this. Meanwhile, I spent mine trying to do it. Somehow, both of us lost years because of it. Before we were inside, I quietly became everything you never expected. I was banned from Christmas.